goodness. I cannot believe this is happening. This is happening. I have this mic and this book. This book. That's me. That's my name. MRC. Given at birth. Wow. This is so cool. Do a little for the thumbnail. Hopefully I got a good thumbnail out of that. Well, just as I said, here we are, and I'm not used to this mic, so I might hunch over it sometimes. But we are starting to read my book together. And let me just tell you right now, it is not perfect. This is my first time publishing a book, and I know the writing ins and outs, as much as one can. There's always more to learn. But the layout stuff, it's taking a lot of work. So if anyone's interested in purchasing it, just know that for the cover design, we've already updated the hardcover. You can see originally it didn't go all the way to the edges. It does now. We're working on updating the soft cover. Kindle, the cover looks fine. Formatting's pretty all right. Like, would I do a few very minor things differently? Yes. But overall, very, very happy. This is crazy. I don't even know how to preface everything that we're going to be doing and reading, except that I did a YouTube video talking about my book, my novel, how it came into existence. I've been writing it for 4 years, since 2020, COVID era, and it started as a short story. The idea for the short story just exploded into something completely else, and I really, really hope you like it. It's contemporary fiction, aka realistic fiction, aimed for people in their 20s, but if you're a young adult, like you're 17, 16, I think you'll still like it. If you've ever been a mother, you'll probably like it because there's a mother-daughter relationship that might be relatable to you. And if your family has any mental health issues, or you've ever had problems with your childhood family or the family you want to create, well, then here you go. Hopefully you'll find yourself being seen in this book. And if anything, hopefully you'll be able to see others more clearly after reading this. I am not a professional narrator at all. I've never taken voice acting classes. I never even had singing classes or acting classes. I have not even been in a play, but please do not let that discount me from being considered for the role of Rapunzel for the live Tangled version. Thank you, Disney. I didn't even close that wink all the way. Anyway, all that said, my practice for reading books comes from reading Twilight, which is different from my book. And I will say, I think I've nailed the Bella voice, but it's done so much that everyone knows how to do it. So when it comes to my characters, I have voices in my head for what they might sound like. It might sound different than what you've imagined if you've already started reading the book. And when it comes to male voices, it's just a shot in the dark. And to be honest, I might change up the voices every chapter. So this is just a journey together. If you want to read along, again, hardcover version is updated. Softcover is being updated. Although if you want to be one of the few that will have the original with the knot to the borders, fantastic. Or honestly, just purchase it and then return it once you see that the cover is updated and get the better one. I don't know. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't. Amazon, don't come at me, please. I'm so sorry. Love you. Honestly, Amazon probably doesn't even know I exist, so it's fine for now. Yeah, but I hope that you guys have a fun time reading along. If reading along isn't really your thing, I hope you have a good time listening, since there is no Audible audio version out there yet. This is what we have. Well, guess we'll just get into it. Shelly by MRC. Read mrc.com to make your day better. I'm gonna read the little things because the acknowledgement section, I know most people skip over it, but I did not write this book alone. Acknowledgments section is to say, hey, here are all the other authors of this book. Here are all my supporters who made this possible, because this book would not be here if it was just me, period. Anyway, dedication to my writing group full of marvelous women trying to make a change. Love you guys. Acknowledgments. Although only my name gets credit on the cover, this book was not made by me alone. Cheesy. But please take the time to read this. These people deserve acknowledgement First and foremost, I want to thank the writing groups who made me feel like my writing was worth reading. They gave me more than tips and edits. They showed me excitement and curiosity each time I submitted a chapter for review. While my first writing group no longer meets, they were the group to see Shelly in its earliest, messiest stages. Thank you to CJ, Dallin, Isaac, and Ella. My current writing group saw this project through to the end. We transformed from classmates who sat by one another at random to friends who keep in touch, even as we move apart. They have borne more burdens than reading my manuscripts. They have been there during life-altering events that left me with nothing but a crippling despair. I love each person in this group and owe them much gratitude. Thank you to Brenna, Casti, Carly, and Stephanie. My writing would not be where it is today without the many teachers and professors who have helped me. Thank you to Lisa Lucart for fueling my love of writing and giving me a place to belong during the craziness of high school. Thank you to Carol Lynch Williams, an author herself, for becoming my mentor and for believing in me with no loss of resolve. Thank you to my first creative writing professor, Mari Mullen, for advocating to seek out writing groups. Without her advice, I may not be in the writing group I am today, and this novel may still be unpublished. Okay, there is one other name on the back cover, but I want to draw more attention to it. Thank you to Maddie Pachev for her creative insights in designing a cover I never could have imagined. You made this process far easier for me. Thank you to the family and friends who have shown enthusiasm about my first publication. Especially thank you to those who invested a selfless interest in this project before I had any idea that I would self-publish it. Thank you to my beta readers. Many volunteered, some began to read my manuscript, and few finished it. There were no benefits attached to reading my work, but I appreciate the sacrifices and time that were made on my behalf. One of the people who read it and sacrificed time was a new mother with work to be done, a full-time job, and she still showed up for me. Amazing. Thank you to my psychology professors for introducing me to what I consider the most fascinating and fulfilling field of science. Their love for the subject made it that much more intriguing to me. In addition, thank you to the therapists who helped me learn how to deal with my own troubled past. Although I am still healing, I now value myself more than I realized was possible. While the healing process is not linear, I have grown enough to share a novel such as this one, in hopes that others can benefit from the lessons I have learned thus far. Thank you to my friend Frankie. Few have believed in and supported me as you have. In adulthood, friends tend to come and go, but there's nothing like having a best friend who supports you through the thick and thin. There's nothing like having a best friend that's there for the long run. Finally, thank you to my readers. I noticed the people who have read my blog since the beginning. I love seeing comments on my YouTube videos. The few likes I got on Instagram Reels, and when I say few, I mean under 10, you guys. They made that much more of an impact on me. People weren't watching because of my popularity. They were watching because of their genuine interest and support. And of course, here you are, supporting me now by reading this book. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you enjoy reading about Shelly's journey as much as I've enjoyed writing it. With much love, MRC. Chapter 1, Shattered. Something about open space, frigid air, and an undetermined future appears thrilling at first thought. As Shelly sat on the concrete walkway, a floor below the level on which her apartment was located, nothing excited her about the way the rain dripped off the edges of her covering. The darkness of night didn't bring her a resolve to push on to a better refuge. It compelled her to return to the light and warmth of her own home, merely a few stairs and steps away, except at home was a broken plate and John. Her husband, John, probably missed her, right? After their argument, perhaps he watched television for a while, but eventually he must have turned it off. He would feel too guilty. He would worry about her. He would walk around their small confines, wondering what he should do. Yes, that was it. He hadn't come to find her yet because a riveting debate occupied his mind. Call, text, give her space, run out and declare his love for her. He must have known that she waited within reach. He must have known the cold made her bones too weak to go very far. Shelly scratched behind her neck, digging into an inch of raw skin. Releasing a deep breath, she watched with envy as the carbon dioxide escaped her body. The night air had cooled past dew point, making her breath visible in a fog-like form. Thermometers in the city read 22 degrees Fahrenheit, but without her phone, Shelly only knew the temperature as cold. Her apartment complex was like an open box. No roof filled the center. 3 floors of apartment doors were on the inside, facing each other, rather than being on the outside, facing the streets. All of the hallways were exposed to the outside air and weather via the lack of coverage. From her own apartment door, on the 3rd and highest floor, Shelly could have seen the mountains. Their green trees had already begun turning orange and yellow, despite it being the middle of September. At times, this view made Shelly grateful that she lived in a cheap version of a garden-style complex. A heated contemplation ricocheted in her head like a buzzing firework. Return to her apartment and face the broken dish. Face what had led to the broken dish. Or leave. She could leave if she wanted to. If she really wanted to. That's what she told herself. Besides, she thought, John probably sat on their dirty, bumpy brown couch watching their television. He probably didn't care. Not enough to think much of her leaving. Shelly had threatened leaving enough times that it probably lost effect. Maybe this time would have made a difference if it weren't for the way she left. Storming out just like her mom. A gust of gas stirred in her stomach and she could taste the nausea on her tongue. She moved her mind away from her mom and instead focused on her awful self. Shelly tried to recall John's question, the way the plate shards flew to the ground, but those thoughts doubled her over. Even a floor lower than where she lived, the air felt thin. Her lungs couldn't get the oxygen in or out fast enough. Then she could hear it, the wheezing. Her breathing was making noise, and if someone heard, they might come out, and they might see her, huddled on the ground like an abandoned infant. The risk of that stood, whether she made noise or not, but that didn't mean she had to increase the chances of it happening. As her breath quieted, the voice in her head screamed, broken. Everything broken because of her. The plate, the family she had, the family she could have had. She changed her mind. She couldn't think about either of those things. Her mom, herself. Too much pain. Pushing herself off the ground, Shelly walked down the second floor's hallway, gripping her elbows. She stopped before going down the stairs. Anyone looking out their window would have wondered if she had lost her way or needed help finding a misplaced possession. As her body tensed, she stared down the stairs. The decision came between stairs or stay. Leave or return. Shelly made the decision to avoid making a decision and found herself grounded on the second floor again, her back against a concrete wall as she stared past the railing, shivering in the shadows. Drops of water landed on the railing, on the concrete, on the cement below. Even inside the complex, she could hear the slosh of cars driving on the road outside. College kids were known to stay out all night, even on a Monday. After living in Provo for 5 years and attending university, Shelly expected most days to be restless, aside from Sunday. It was both a perk and a downside to living in a college town in Utah. In her undergrad, Shelly used this to her advantage. Wherever people interacted, she would bring a pencil or brush, prepared to sketch or paint them. Now, in her first semester of graduate school, she had every academic incentive to create art, but she didn't. Despite her hands no longer capturing the collections of people, the social interactions didn't slow down. The town would be less lively if it only contained students from Brigham Young University. Instead, many of the neighboring cities' university students chose to live in Provo too. Add in the cosmetic school students and the student-age peers that worked, and nothing could stop the constant get-togethers or go-out-togethers. It was partially an adult in their 20s thing and partially a Utah culture thing. If people didn't socialize, how else would they meet their future spouse? Speaking of hasty choices, Shelly shivered. She shouldn't have left without her jacket. There were at least 6 in their hall closet. She may not have money, but spending most of her youth in humid Nebraska taught her to have multiple resources to combat the cold. Not to mention, Shelly still owned most of the coats she had from high school when she moved with her mother to New York City, although she would have exchanged those coats for a family that stayed in one piece in Nebraska before her parents divorced and she got separated from her brother and sister. More carbon dioxide escaped to freedom as Shelly huffed and pushed herself off the concrete. She couldn't end up like her mom. Time to return to John. When she first rushed outside, it had been pouring. During her ponderings, the rain pattered. Finished with their visit, the gray clouds had finally drifted over the east wall of mountains and the skies above her were dry. Shelly had managed to evade major rain damage. The tips of her auburn hair were wet because of her tears, not the rain. Since her hair cut off at her chin, her locks made for the perfect landing. But she was used to it, and she knew the ends would dry before the hour was up. The metal stairs groaned as Shelly trudged up to where she belonged, where she should belong. She ducked inside, her stomach lurching with dread. She told herself that John didn't care, but that was okay. That was how it went. Why should he care about a monster? Inside the apartment, their yellow-tinted lights illuminated John sitting on the couch. The television was off. One wall had 3 pictures of the couple, all from the wedding. A few feet away, the other wall had no pictures, no decor, no memorabilia. Nothing could tell Shelly what she should say. "John?" she said. He didn't respond. Was he angry? Sad? With everything that had happened, Shelly thought he must hate her now, that he might never love her again. He must have felt worn down. Even if he grew up with 3 sisters, he was still human. Humans have limits to how many negative emotions they can absorb. After all, these things were exhausting. Shelly was exhausting. "John, I'm sorry, Shelly said, walking up to the couch, kneeling and looking at him face to face. His glossy hazelnut eyes connected with hers. Not many people came as close to his face as she permitted herself to. Few saw the small flecks of yellow in his eyes. They shone like strips of light, changing the darkness that could have been, changing a bit of brown to hazelnut. When near his face, she could see a redness in and around John's eyes. By the looks of it, at this rate, running his hands through his honey-brown hair would eventually simulate a sad version of baldness. One would wonder how her brain could have felt so foggy, or too focused on the worst idea, that she could think he didn't care. If he didn't care, he wouldn't have actual hair loss. Latching herself onto John, she wrapped her arms around his neck. His arms encircled her and pulled her up to the couch with him. Every emotion Shelly had felt, doubt, fear, dread, came back to life. As the warmth from both John and the apartment transferred over to her, Shelly's short-lived drought ended. Both of their cheeks became wet as she shed tears again. John rubbed her back. It's okay, he soothed. It's okay. His grip felt like rubber restraints as Shelly pulled away. I'm an awful person, she whined. I'm the worst. I ruin everything. I should go. She pulled harder, almost standing when John drew her back in. You're not the worst. You're not awful. Don't go, Shelly. It's okay. He brushed her hair down with his hand. Shelly caught a glimpse at his arm. Tiny scratch marks. Were they from her or the broken dish? Or both? Raising his arm as evidence, she said, Look at what I did. That wasn't your fault. He made his voice firm. It was an accident. Words didn't make much of a difference. Either way, she believed she deserved all the blame she gave herself. John would have no mess to clean, no scratches on his arms if she had stayed calm. If anxiety, pumping through her veins, had left her feelings and thoughts alone. If she could have comprehended any other choice than to move herself forward and away from the environment. The pressure. If Shelly had not been so detached from logic and could have processed how close the plate was to the counter. John deserved better than this. No one deserved the way she had treated him. In large part, that is why she had spent so long sitting on the second floor. The mixed messages that had gone through her system, pounding the insides of her guts. You're trapped, anxiety said. Get out. Go. You'll ruin it if you go, anxiety said. You'll regret it. You're ruining it by staying. You ruin everything. You'll never have the family you want. That night's cross-examination lasted the longest out of all her lone debates. The thought that spoke the most to her, that kept her outside the past hour, was that John would be better off without her, that he wouldn't care if she left, and that would make it okay to betray him, as she knew he would initially view her leaving as such, at least until he got used to life without her. A feeling came. She could lean in and give him a Judas kiss. Maybe she could leave, and John would remember the kiss as something sweet. Sweet because he loved her, or sweet because she finally let him free. She never wanted to hurt him. What would it do to him if she left? He said he wanted her to stay. Don't go, Shelly. If she left, those words would follow her like a ghost. One more tear fell, landing and slowly disappearing on John's face. It's going to be okay. He held her chin up. Okay? She looked down and unbelieving said, okay. Wow! That's the end of the first chapter. I hope you guys liked that. I don't want to give any spoilers, so I'll leave it at that. But boy, I am just always going to be excited to read the next chapter to y'all. Comment down below if you have any predictions about what might happen. I'm really curious what you think just based on the very first chapter. What's your first impressions of the characters, Shelly and John? And yeah, it's a heavy start, but boy, there's more to come, light and heavy, all along the journey of this book. I love y'all, and thank you so much for supporting. If you're not subscribed, subscribe so you don't miss next week's chapter. You can hit an alert button or just stay subscribed and it will pop up on your homepage when you go to YouTube. And then like this video if you liked this video. And if you haven't gotten your copy yet, I have the link down below in the description. It's also on Amazon, so you can just look it up by looking up Shirley Shelly by MRC. And thank you so much. Everyone have a good rest of your day, good rest of your hour, and I'll see you next week.